Okay, Assalamualaikum and hi again. Welcome back to school. Even though you have a lot of classes during the 2 week breaks, but then still, welcome back to school. So, after looking at your exams, congratulations. You guys did well, but the problem is that the marks that you get is not the whole pictures of your um, skills in doing the exams because we have 4 papers. You have only be tested with 2 papers. You haven't been tested with the third and the fourth paper, which is listening as well as speaking. So now, today we are going to do a bit of listening. This is week 19. So let's do number 1 first. You are going to hear someone talking about the legend of Robin Hood, a character who lived in England around the year 1300. Listen to the first part of the talk and circle the correct words. They have already given you 2 choices, so you just choose one. Listen carefully. But before we do all these listening tasks, let me remind you this is the tips. It is important to read the questions carefully before you listen. So you need to read it before you listen to the recording and to think about what sort of words the answer might be. That way you'll know what to listen to. So that's why you need to read the questions first before listening and try to figure out what kind of answers that that might be there before you do the task. Alright, so we are going to listen to the first part of the questions for number 1. Are you ready? If you're ready or not, let's listen to the first
Unit
part.
2. Listening. Exercise 1.
Robin Hood was a legendary character from medieval England. Legend has it that he lived in Sherwood Forest, near Nottingham, with a group of friends, finding food and shelter there and stealing from rich travellers who passed by. Because of this, he and his team of men were known as outlaws, that is, criminals who were wanted by the authorities. The man in charge of the area at the time was the Sheriff of Nottingham, and Robin Hood and the Sheriff were famous enemies. However, although Robin Hood and his men were criminals, they have always been considered the heroes of the people, because the legend says that they used to steal money from the rich and give it to the poor.
Unit 1.
Alright, so I think you should be able to listen clearly. Now you know a bit about Robin Hood. Okay, let's look at number 2. Before we do it, you have listened to the first part, number 1. So try to guess what is the answer for number 1 and number 2. Sometimes, if you read number 2, you can guess what words can be used. So try to guess the answer for number 3 and number 5. And then number 3, question 4 refers to something being passed down. Okay, what can people pass down to other people? And some pass down songs, some pass down poems, what else? Try to think about it, write it in the comment section below. Okay, number 4, what possible answers are there for question 6? So try to think of the answer for question 6. And then the last one, have a guess at the answers for the other questions and write your guesses in a pencil at the end of each questions. After you have done task 3, see how close your guesses were. So try to guess of the answer first, and then after you finish listening to the listening speech, try to see whether you got it all correct or not. This is one of the tips on how to excel in listening. So let's listen to the text.
Exercise 3.
Robin Hood was a legendary character from medieval England. Legend has it that he lived in Sherwood Forest, near Nottingham, with a group of friends, finding food and shelter there and stealing from rich travellers who passed by. Because of this, he and his team of men were known as outlaws, that is, criminals who were wanted by the authorities. The man in charge of the area at the time was the Sheriff of Nottingham, and Robin Hood and the Sheriff were famous enemies. However, although Robin Hood and his men were criminals, they have always been considered the heroes of the people, because the legend says that they used to steal money from the rich and give it to the poor. People have been fascinated by the legend of Robin Hood for over 700 years. However, nobody knows for sure whether Robin Hood was a real person or a myth. And if he was a real person, then who was he? Most of the evidence we have comes from songs and poems that were written from around the year 1400 onwards. In the days before television, radio, and even books, news and stories would be passed down in this way, and a character called Robin Hood was certainly very well known as a famous outlaw at that time. Another source is the official records of the period, one of which says that a man called Robert Hood was working as a servant for King Edward II, who ruled from 1284 to 1327. One problem that historians have, however, is that Robin, or Robert, and Hood were very common names in medieval times, so it's difficult to prove whether any of these men was the Robin Hood of the legend. Although Sherwood Forest is generally assumed to be where Robin lived, several early poems also indicate that an outlaw of the same name lived in South Yorkshire, which is a little way north of Nottingham. As the two areas are quite close, and Robin may have moved around to escape the authorities, it's quite possible that he lived in both areas. We don't even know exactly when he lived. We have the official record connecting a Robert Hood with King Edward II, but later theories connect him to a different king, King John, who ruled a whole century earlier. Despite the confusion, Robin Hood and the other characters in the legend have remained popular until today, and they attract thousands of tourists to Nottingham and Sherwood Forest every year. Many films and TV series have been made about the outlaw who fought for the common people and against the rich rulers of the time. There is even an organization in modern-day New York City called Robin Hood, which continues Robin's mission by giving financial support to the poor. Although we may never solve the mystery of who Robin Hood really was, his legend lives on.
Unit 2.
All right. The text is rather difficult, but you can always replay it several times to get the answer. So let's see how many of you get all correct. We will talk about the answers in the next class. All right, that's all for today. Thank you very much, guys.